First of all, thank you guys so much for inviting me to share. It's such an honor and such a pleasure to be in the room with all of you, and highly resonant with how you are approaching your work, Chelsea and Daisy. It's very much looking at things from a whole systems point of view, looking at the root causes, and really addressing it from that perspective. So our effort is very much in the same vein, and so we looked at something very, very fundamental. And I want to ask you guys one thing to consider, and then at the end of it, I'm going to share something with you. That is, how would you live your life if you weren't afraid of an uncertain future? Okay, so just hold that thought. I'm going to come back to it. And the key thing that we are addressing is, you know, this country is founded on this concept of freedom. And we talk about freedom a lot. What does it really mean to be free? And do you really feel free when you buy your way through life? Everything, this is very fundamental to who we are right now, right? So everything's for sale, everything's negotiated, and we think that maybe this makes it easier to get what we want. Lifestyle as a service. You know, we have a lot of these interesting things happening in the world, a lot of technical and innovations we can access. Or is that really the case? One side we should be really afraid of. You know, George Carlin said back in the day, you know, the poor are there to make the middle class shit scared, so they work for the rich. Or if you have too much of it, which is right now, there's a lack of confidence. People are moving all their assets to crypto, and they don't really know what crypto means. What if we looked at this thing a little differently? And I think that's what we started to propose. So we looked at something very fundamental to our existence, is how we transact in everyday life. Essentially, what we've created is a Netflix for lifestyle as a service. Everything that we use. So transportation, lodging, food. Okay? So there are people who are creating amazing enterprises, platform cooperatives. Many of you know what that is. And we essentially create a situation where you have access card where you top up. It creates a pool of resources. You match up with vendors or networks that share your values, and you trade however you want to trade. It could be two-way gifting. It could be a time purchase. It could be any number of things. And we can start to kind of create that. Now, that looks like a kind of a crazy undertaking. So what do? How does that really work? Well, it's kind of like, and the Swedes in the room will understand this, we're in this very interesting space technologically where we have the ability to create radical transparency and accountability in a way that we've never had before to date. Okay? Which means that if all of us emptied out our wallets and knew exactly what we're about, yet without giving up private information, what would that world look like? And so it's kind of like a buffet. You don't overeat at a buffet, or you do overeat, but at the same time, everyone knows everything. Everyone can see everyone else's actions. So it actually naturally regulates itself just by that fact. You can see it. So this is basically a slide where it says, oh, this guy's looting a store, and this person is putting an umbrella over somebody. Sorry for the, but we are amazing. And so the way we looked at this is very much in the vein of what you're doing and what Daisy's proposed. Really look at this thing from, okay, we need to create a way to bring resources into this. So convenings that everyone is doing. So basically, free ways to play, free ways to form a product and service experience, and look at the resources as the evolution of investment and commerce to begin with, free ways to flow from fiat capital to a fundamentally different paradigm of what that capital actually represents. So we're doing it, and you've heard of this thing, right? Cryptocurrency. Okay, I want you to, just for a second, I want you to think about one thing. Is a proxy ever current? If I show you a picture of food, does that make you full? So the world we've created today uses an in-between, go-between to get to the thing we want. But now remember the picture of the buffet. When you have everything seen and we know who everyone is, It's a fundamentally different paradigm. It changes supply and demand in real time. So basically, the ability to your cost of customer acquisition, cost of goods sold, all of those things become flat. So now we can see everything. So why would you need something like a currency or a coin in order to do things? See, we go, but wait, we need a unit of measure. We already have that. That thing expires. It doesn't hold value. Likes, tweets, clicks. Oh, medium of exchange. We're doing that all the time. We call Skype, messaging. This happens all the time. Instant. Okay, no lag time. Doesn't store value unless it was a valuable conversation. So what about the store of value? Well, we thought of it from the point of view of everyone's in it. The consumer is somebody who's an investor. The supplier is somebody who's an investor. Right now, we have a paradigm where it's a race to the bottom for people who actually produce value. So we're trying to aggregate it. And the person who's actually consuming value is kind of negligible. It's harder and harder for them to get to what they want. So we created something, consumer as an investor, supplier as an investor, and the platform as an investor in the outcome that we want. And it's an integrated process. Now, how do we do this integrated process? We do free play. We reconnect to why we do what we do and reorient ourselves to co-create the next cultures, languages, and understand that there's multiple worldviews. It's not just the way you think and your community works. So it's really working with conveners, platform co-ops, and bringing them into the fold. We enroll them, make it really easy for them to come in and say, hey, you know what? We have this thing where you get this access card, and it's going to give you a lot of free and cool stuff. So we enroll people into this mix. We redo the story of ourselves of we come into a situation, we go, what's in it for me? We want to shift that to how can I serve? And if I understand what's going on, I can shift that narrative, and there's many techniques to do exactly that. And then we kind of release ourselves from this whole idea that we're in this alone. We're really not. We're all co-creating this stuff together. So when we do the product, same kind of thing. We don't just say, hey, here's a product. It's going to be the next Facebook. We don't know that. It's an ongoing conversation with the stakeholders. So we want to have a free-form identity. So this technology enables us to hold on to our private information, move about, and actually access things like an access card. Like when you walk into a synagogue or a church, there's implicit rules in that space. It's not, they don't hand you a contract, but you know how to behave there. And so that's essentially the kind of identity construct that we're creating. We're sharing our API freely so that anyone can create an identity like that. And we're using a co-design process with some of the most brilliant, innovative people in the world who are pioneering this technology. And we're creating a fundamentally different user experience. We're creating smarter identities. We're co-designing experiences. What it actually feels like to be to move like this, so that we can access lifestyle as a service, which is our right, because we produce more than enough. And everyone should be able to access it in that way because we're putting in. All of us put in on this, man. So fundamentally, this is a different paradigm. And we looked at the first generation of things, like Amazon, Alibaba, those kinds of things. And just look at the general chart. We can get into it in detail because I only have a little bit of time. Second generation discounters, Groupon, Expedia, etc. Sharing economy services, Uber, Airbnb, etc. New barter and social sharing things like Simbi, Tradia, etc. Platform co-op networks, Fair Co-op, etc. So all of these things solve a particular piece of the puzzle of, can any member issue credit? Do you need financing? Does it access the resource pool? Is there a real-time supply and demand? Is it easy to use? Is it a self-sustaining model? Does it have global reach across multiple network? Is it 100% transparent? Does it have an open revenue share? Does it have a user-generated membership growth? Some of them have something, most of them don't. We hit all of those things because we're approaching it from a fundamentally different way. And we're now having conversations with the investment community, with the financial community, because you know what? We're all in this together. The wall of numbers is not going to serve you because that proxy is not going to feed the earth. So we're evolving the nature of finance itself from, I want a return on investment. Well, what do you really want? What you really want is a return on intention. What is it that you wanted to manifest your worldview into existence. And you wanted to use that tool that you have as financial capital to get the maximum impact. So to speaking to what Daisy spoke about before, use it where it's most beneficial. Ask the question, what Chelsea brought up before, ask the questions that how does it create the outcome that I want? And really work with this process to convert the world of capital and commitments, which we can capture, into consideration. The foundation of business is reciprocity and consideration. If it's inconsiderate, we don't have a business relationship. When Amazon squeezes suppliers out of the mix and to try to aggregate everything, if you kill the tree, you can't eat the fruit. Okay, so converting into considerations, and we have a tool for that. It's called smart contracts, but there's actually a smarter way of doing smart contracts to actually start to regenerate true wealth. And that's the conversation we're having with all of these groups. Essentially, there's pain points for investors. You don't trust how this is going to turn out. There's pain points for creators. There's pain points for consumers and seekers. We address every single one of those things because really, this is about a collective conversation that we're all having together. It is not something that I didn't come up with the solutions. My core partners, Bonnie Nixon and Eric Rothenberg, who are not here today, they didn't come up with the solution. The collaborators, all of us, including people in the room, that's been like Lars and Fyodor and all of us have been kind of involved in these conversations. We're co-creating this together. This is a new reality that starting with a conversation, starting with really what is it that what is the outcome that we really want? Let's have something that people can understand because of the way the world works. Let's have a point of reference and let's hit these points because there is a possibility for a true prosperity network. It used to be called family. And it's kind of it's both a dictatorship and a democracy. It doesn't have to be one way. There was a conversation we're having about the future of medicine, where is it allopathic or is it holistic? It's both. There's a time for this and time for that. And so that's essentially the paradigm that we're co-creating, and we're working with some of the most amazing people in the world, storytellers, culture hackers, technologists, Scepter, Holochain. There's a lot of these kind of interesting technological things, and they're contributing their time, energy, etc. And this is a part of conversation that I want to enroll you in. If you really want to contribute towards working on the actual technical solution with us, join us on our Slack channel, which is FYL, Free Your Life, thelove.slack.com, and I can invite you in. Or if you go to my website, which is www.thisisgrow.org, if you sign up and just mention FYL in the capture, and we can continue the conversation there. And that's really it. I'm just opening up the conversation so that we can participate and we can co-create a future that we can all live into. Now, I'm going to come back to what I shared with you before. What if you lived your life without fearing an uncertain future? If you look at the world of finance, all the things that we come down to, how am I going to get funding for this? This uncertain future, what is fueling this greed and power? It's like, I don't know. Oh my God, what's going to happen? I need to make sure that, I'm going to break down your ladder so that my ladder is secure. I want to make sure that, I'm holding all these things. I want to put a fence around it. But you know what the reality is today? That all of these agreements of the past couple of hundred years, the rule of law is breaking down. The fundamentals that we believe is true actually are not technically true. We stopped having nation state the minute you had global commerce and supply chains were interlinked. So the idea that you put a fence around and defending with army is not really true. Our identity of who we are as people, industrious people, we don't have role-based things anymore. Are you a designer? Are you a storyteller? Are you a creator or an engineer? You're all of those things. It's nothing. It's not so much based on those kinds of, factory line identities anymore. Our own family identities are. We have mixed families. We have same-sex couples. We have all kinds of things. So thank you. But it really comes down to who are we, and who are we in relationship to others. And I think fundamentally, who we are is love, because what we really want at the end of the day is to be loved love and to be loved in return. We just express it that multiple cultural lenses. So what we really want to do is to empower each and every one of us to free your life. And that's it.
Thank you, Ray.